Hey, this is Aaron Carnes. We started this podcast in 2021 to promote my book, In Defense of Ska. Since then, the podcast has grown into its own thing. I've been working on an expanded second edition. I interviewed new people, edited every chapter, and there's a new final chapter, 30,000 new words. The expanded second edition of In Defense of Ska will be released on October 29th, 2024. Can you do something for me? Pre-order it right now at clashbooks.com under the Books tab. The more copies it sells in advance, the more it'll get people to support ska music. Thanks.
Consequence Podcast Network. Welcome to In Defense of Ska. We aim to push back on the mainstream's negative perception of the music. Ska deserves the respect genres like punk, hip-hop, and hardcore find among their listeners. Our host is renowned music journalist and author of the book In Defense of Ska, Aaron Carnes.
Today we talk with Fishbone's bassist Norwood Fisher. Fishbone formed in the late 70s when the members were still kids. By the early 80s, they were one of the hottest bands in LA. Then in 1983, they got signed to Columbia Records. In 1985, they released their debut self-titled EP, a landmark American ska record. The group's influences were really diverse, and they never committed to playing just one genre. But in those early days, a lot of their music revolved around ska. They approached the genre in a way totally different than the two-tone musicians before them. It was faster, wilder, and blended with more styles. It completely shifted how US ska bands would play the genre, which is to say, more chaotic. That debut EP sounds like it could have been released in 1995. And now, joining me is my co-host, veteran ska musician Adam Davis of Omnigon and Link 80.
So for you, Aaron, is Fishbone an important band in ska or the most important band in ska?
I'm going to go with the most important band, at least in terms of American ska, what came after two-tone in terms of the direction that ska would take, particularly in the US, but globally as well.
Yeah. I mean, anytime we've been talking on here to a musician about their relationship to ska, Fishbone always comes up.
Yeah, always. And the thing about Fishbone is that if we had a podcast about 90s alternative rock or funk metal or other genres, they would come up frequently as well because they've been influential in a multitude of places. But for me, for my interest and from my point of view, their role in ska is what's really important.
Yeah, they're not just a ska band. They do all sorts of different stuff.
Have you heard their new EP that they released last year?
I did.
Yeah, it leans quite in the ska direction, more than anything they've released in quite a while. So I'm very happy with that.
And listener, you can also check out our episode with Angelo Moore that we did back in 2021, episode number 34.
The first thing I want to talk about is the Fishbone social media content. I feel like the last couple of years has been really strong, the stuff that you guys are posting there. And I've learned some stuff about the band from that stuff. So I wanted to run a few interesting tidbits I saw on your social media.
Oh, let's go.
All right. So when Gallagher died, you posted that they used to open for Gallagher in the 80s.
Absolutely correct. That happened.
Whoa.
What were those shows like?
You know what? Gallagher showed Fishbone a lot of love, and it actually put us in front of an audience that I know would have missed us.
Mm-hmm.
They weren't checking for us. Gallagher was like, I want my audience to experience this. So, yeah, it was insane for us. We knew who Gallagher was and his whole smash it up comedy routine, and yeah, it was we I don't even remember how many times it would always be at the Palace in Hollywood, which is now, I believe, the Avalon. I don't even know if they do live shows there anymore. I think they do, but it's just rare. Like they have some kind of DJ stronghold over there. Right. But ultimately, yeah, man, it was wild. And I just remember it being like an audience that was receptive to what we did. There was this one show that we did at he headlined Universal. I mean, not Universal. It was the Irvine Meadows, and I believe it was Fishbone and the Untouchables, and there was somebody else on there. He reached out to Sky. I don't know if the third band was a Sky band or not, but dude, he had Fishbone and the Untouchables at his Irvine Meadows show. Like, big old, dance party of music and his comedy.
So this was like mid 80s or early 80s.
Yeah, it seems like it was more the mid 80s. Yeah.
So he was huge at that point, right?
He was massive. He was big and growing.
Yeah. It's just, I was just thinking back to being a kid and seeing Gallagher on TV. Never would have imagined bands opening for him, let alone good bands.
Yeah, I mean, like that became a thing in comedy. Like, and I appreciate it. Like comedy and music. Like Eddie Murphy did it with the Bus Boys. He brought the Bus Boys under his wing, and they were part of his comedy performances, and he put their music in his movies.
Did you open up for any other comedians in your career?
My mom remembered something. Okay, so wait a minute. I can't, this is the embarrassing part because I cannot remember this guy's name right now. And he's like the most famous guy on the planet. No, not really, but he's super famous. It's like, and it was a comedian, and I'd be seeing him in restaurants in Santa Monica where I live, and like I feel like I'm bothering people a lot, and so they leave people alone sometimes, right? Like I don't want to bother them, maybe I should call my mom and ask. Anyway, like that, but I think he opened for Fishbone and then blew all the way up.
He opened for you.
Yeah, like I actually now I'm having a total collapse in my memory banks. I'm sure we've done more than Gallagher.
Yeah. Well, maybe it'll come back to you.
Yeah.
Oh, so there was another post. This one totally blew my mind. It was an article. So William Zabka, the Johnny from Karate Kid, it was an article. Like he said that he grew up with Angelo and that he used to jam with Fishbone. I think it might even been pre-Fishbone.
Pre-Fishbone. He lived across the street from Angelo. They grew up like neighbors. And Billy Zabka. I don't really remember him jamming with us. That's a long time ago. He probably did because we were welcoming, we were opening. If the motherfucker said he could play, like go ahead, pick it up and let's see what you can do, right? Mm-hmm. But yeah, like him and Angelo hung, dude. And El Camino High School, Woodland Hills.
Do you know if they're still tight?
I wouldn't say they're tight. No.
Okay.
But it's good memories. Like when I see Billy, that's fuck yeah, I know
So was that a trip when Karate Kid came out and he had this role?
I didn't remember who he was. Like, oh, that's a nice movie. I didn't even see it, right? It was old as fuck when I saw it.
Oh yeah,
yeah. I was like saw it on HBO or some shit way later.
Well, now they relaunched, the Cobra Kai, the TV show with him on it.
Right.
Have you watched that at all?
No.
We got to get a Fishbone cameo in that. Come on.
I actually don't watch a lot of TV.
That's fine. You don't need to. TV's bad for you.
Yeah. I mean, I'm like a news junkie, news information, and you know,
Sure.
I got like it's been a while. Like I used to watch like a lot of extreme sports. Like I do a little bit. You know, I broke my wrist skateboarding, but that wasn't because I'm a badass. But yeah, man. Yeah. So I miss out on a lot, uh, entertainment wise, personally. But
Mhm.
you know, and I don't retain movies well either. Like everybody, like not everybody, because but like Chris Dowd, he's got zingers with one liners from movies all the time. He remembers so much. I don't remember a damn thing in a movie.
Okay, so another post. This one was more recent. It was basically saying that Sid Croft from Sid and Marty Croft is a Fishbone fan. Apparently,
I didn't know that.
you didn't know that one. Okay,
I missed that post.
yeah, yeah. I don't know how. I Googled it. I didn't see anything about it, but I remember when the post came up, it was said, "Oh, Sid Croft's a big Fishbone fan," and then he commented, "He's like, hell yeah, I am."
That makes my big toe shoot up in my boot.
Yeah, hey, me too. Those shows were so insane. I love hearing that he digs Fishbone.
Just he even knows that there is a fishbone that exists is major for me, man.
Yeah.
Or, like I'm like I like that would be a collaboration that would,
Oh, hell yeah.
you know,
Yeah, I got to get him to make a video. That would be.
it'd be super exciting. That's like be on the same level of when we worked with Spike Lee, man. That's like,
Yeah.
you know,
When we had Margaret Cho on this podcast and she said that she was a big fan, you had never known about that before?
no, I didn't know that. And you know what? As we talk, I'm going like I could have been face to face with her, said something crazy in her, you know what I mean? Like try to hit on her best friend or something, and I wouldn't remember, you know. like, I don't, but I'm a fan. I'm like
Yeah.
she's brilliant, and
Yeah.
you know, like she's and I love that she's actually pushing the envelope, you know, and expanding as a creator.
Mhm. Yeah.
It's important that she's there.
This wasn't a post, but I saw this one just came up when I was reading some interviews. Dave Grohl's old band Scream, they opened for Fishbone back in the day.
Yeah, man, I was a fan of Scream, so I was excited when that show was coming up. It was in Miami at the Cameo Theater. Um, I remember that day very clearly because I was excited at the legend of Scream, right? And then I never forget, like we did our sound check, and you know we jam a lot and go on, and but we finished, and Dave Grohl. I went to go introduce myself to the guys, and Dave Grohl was like, do you think your drummer would uh, let strike his kit so I can use the drum riser?" And I already knew that the likelihood was a no answer, but I went and asked Fish, and Fish was like, "Hell no." I had to go back and tell Dave Grohl no. You know, decades and decades later, I was at like, Foo Fighters at the Forum backstage. I'm talking to the dudes in Alice in Chains, and Dave Grohl walks up. Lemmy was there too. But me and Dave Grohl had a moment where, we just talked a little bit, and that moment flashed like if it was I was embarrassed. You know? Like, damn, my brother was like, said, hell no. And look at Dave Grohl now.
Scream were awesome, and also they did play a little bit of ska.
Right?
Yeah. All right. So the new Fishbone EP came out earlier this year, and which I love, by the way.
Thank you. I'm really happy with it.
One thing I noticed is probably the most ska on a release that you've had since maybe even the first EP, right?
Yeah, it's ska intensive.
What was the reason behind all the ska?
Well, one, it just like Fat Mike producing. He's just looking for the songs,
Mm-hmm.
right? If the song connects to him, he's like, I want to do that, and that I think is just what happened ultimately. Those elements were there in the songwriting resonated because we did what we do. We would just write and write. We wrote a lot of songs, and I know some of them had to suck, but it was he got the best, the cream of the crop in his mind. He pointed to, and then we continued to craft them, and voila, you get Fishbone's new music.
Yeah.
I'm really happy with it, and like right now we're playing 4 out of the 5 songs live, and "Wake Up My Child" is the last one, and I'm excited to begin to play that too. I was actually talking to Paul Hampton from the Skeletons, and he was like, just a couple days ago, and he was like, "Yeah, that's my favorite song." I'm like, "That's what's next. You be rocking that shit."
It's a great release. Like I feel like all the songs on it are awesome.
Yeah, way to curate, Fat Mike.
I remember first hearing about you working with Fat Mike in like 2020, I believe.
Yep, yep.
And wasn't it going to be an LP originally?
Yeah, yeah. We set out to do 10 songs, and there was the crazy showed up, right? Like it almost fell all the way apart.
Oh, really?
Yeah, yeah, and I didn't think it was for any good reason. It was actually for really bad reasons. And I'm glad that it all came back around, and maybe the timing was just right. And I don't know. It feels like I'm in the right place at the right time today. Although it was painful. The whole band, like we came to a complete standstill as a band. Like we were getting together, still writing, but like nothing was happening. Part of it was COVID, but it was just you know like we had 5 original members, and like to this day, I'm like it's a bunch of strong-willed aging guys. Aging guys that have known each other. Like I think I was 12 when I met Chris and Kendall.
Hmm.
You know,
That's a long time. Yeah.
yeah, I just turned 58. Like it was, and I was 13 when I met Angelo. Turned 14. When I really started getting to know him. So you know, family, right?
Mhm.
Like that's the
Yeah.
best way to describe it. It's like any family, that has some level of dysfunction, and I'm dysfunctional as anybody. Uh, but we were this functional enough to make it to get this EP out. I'm so happy.
Yeah. It was awesome to see like people talking about it, people talking about you guys again that in maybe publications or other things where people hadn't been talking about you for a while.
Yeah, and even just the radio stations that are actually playing it. Like I'm just like, dude, it's been so long since that we've been on the air somewhere. Like we were playing in Boston with George Clinton, and a good friend came backstage. Is like, "Are you playing Cubicle tonight?" I'm like, "I don't think Angelo knows lyrics yet." He's like, "Well, I hear that shit on the radio every day." I'm like, "Huh? I didn't know."
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. I heard that Cubicles has gotten some radio play.
Yeah, and all we have is now came out the box with a little bit of radio play here and there, you
Hmm.
know. So, this is it feels incredible, like somewhat of a rebirth. And I just feel really good about it. I just I love Fat Mike. He's been a bro since the day I met him, and like what we've done to me is like the band's writing, his instincts, it all worked together to create something amazing.
The song "Estranged Fruit" got a co-write with him. Was his input on that one a little different?
He gave us those lyrics, man.
Oh, okay.
And he wrote that like, because as we're coming together, it was at the height of the George Floyd protests, right?
Yeah.
And he had wrote those lyrics 2 years in advance of that. And he was just like, dude, I got these lyrics. They kind of fit the moment. And we read them and was like, there's a thing called the Cinderella theory. Try it on and see if it fits. That motherfucker fit. The shoe we wearing it right now.
I remember in 2020 during COVID, you guys did a show, like some kind of show at Fat Mike's house.
Yes.
I guess like a live stream with like a few people there, and that was the song that I remember watching at that really intrigued me about what this Fat Mike record was going to yield. I was like, "Whoa, this is cool. I want to hear what they're doing now."
Yeah, that was really special, and that was like the last, like everything kind of ground to a halt after that performance.
Mm-hmm.
On the real, Fat Mike went to rehab, right? And in the time that we were in limbo after that, like the band started doing its own, kind of tripping.
Mm-hmm.
In my opinion, like the egos of I could do it better. Like, why are we stopping? I'm like, dude, Mike is going to rehab. Like, what the fuck? Anyway, band fuckery. It happens.
It happens. It happens, especially with bands that have been together as long as yours has.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm just glad that we can be here now and celebrate our legacy with our fans, longtime fans, and create space for new people to come aboard and fly the flag of the Fishbone Soldier.
I'm curious about the decision to do the cover that you did, where you took the original EP and you put like scotch tape or duct tape. I mean, not scotch tape. Put duct tape over the faces.
I think that originally, like Chris Dowd had a concept, like, and it was called the Black Plague.
Hmm.
This is pre-COVID. Now that I'm thinking about it, I didn't like it. I did not like the concept. He made a T-shirt and he put crazy masks on the faces of everybody and crossed out the name Fishbone, and like a punk rock band called, like, we come out as a punk rock band called the Black Plague, and I didn't get it, right?
Yeah.
And so it came time to do the shoot. We were going to do a photo shoot, and again, in the we could be obstinate and get in our own way. I think Angelo would refuse to show up to the photo shoot because he needed to protest something. And management threw that one up. I did not like it at all.
Mm-hmm.
Some of the band members loved it. Some of the band members liked what Chris came up with in the first place. And that one went forward. And today, like, I was not happy. Today, I'm totally cool.
Yeah. It's a weird cover, but I guess it does kind of suggest a rebirth. Like, the first cover, still self-titled EP, ska oriented. It does have a sort of a like rebirth tone to it.
You know what? I think I saw like Questlove did a post like completely, like giving love to us, and it seems like he stated that like what we did was a sequel to that EP, 4 decades later or however long it is,
Mhm.
which like when I saw that, the way he phrased it, I was like, oh shit, like okay, it makes sense. I gotta put my guns down.
Questlove, he's a pretty big Fishbone fan.
Dude, so much love from him, man. I really appreciate uh, everything. Like his and those guys are always nice to us. And,
Mhm.
we're very fortunate to meet them when they were a baby band in Philadelphia. Um,
Did you play with them?
no, not then. That we just had some mutual friends that made sure that because they were the shit. They were the band that everybody was like, no, this is our band. Philly got something special. And
Mhm.
and then some friends, Big Al Branch and Liz Orleans made sure that we met them.
That's rad. Yeah. Every time he's like said anything about Fishbone, like I just feel like he gets it. Like he gets it. He's got such like beautiful insight into your music.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm like, yeah, like I said, like the way he put the current EP in the context, I'm like, he got it better than me.
Yeah.
In Defense of Ska will return in a moment.
Hey, welcome to Kyle Meredith with Consequence. This is where we check out some of the cool new things happening in the Consequence Podcast Network. I'm Kyle Meredith. Today, I get to talk with Adam Unz to discuss the latest season of The Opus.
Hi.
Well, first off, Adam, congratulations on the new season.
Thanks, Kyle.
So, which album is in the spotlight this season?
As always, it's presented by the Consequence Podcast Network and Sony Legacy Recordings. It's a music history series, and it's coming back to celebrate the 30th anniversary of Alice in Chains' sophomore album, Dirt.
What a classic album. I completely remember hearing it, those first few listens back when it came out, 92. I probably picked it up in 93 and 94. It was just dark and heavy and so melodically beautiful at the same time.
I know. Dirt was truly a genre-bending collection that defined an era. So we're going to help our listeners to explore the context of what was happening back then and also hear how it still inspires artists and fans today.
Sounds great. And you can listen to it at consequence.net or, of course, wherever you get podcasts. It's great talking with you, Adam. Thanks for stopping by.
Thanks, Kyle.
So later this year, you are going on tour with Giza.
Yeah, November.
Yeah, the Truth and Swords tour.
Yes.
That seems like an awesome pairing. It's not one that I would have anticipated. I'm curious if you have history with Giza.
Not at all.
Really?
No, not at all. But we got a history with hip hop.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So that's what it is. That's why it makes sense to me, because we've been intertwined with hip hop from our earliest days. It's kind of incredible even to think, like, for those who don't know, well, I'm gonna just say Leor Cohen, who eventually, I think he ran operations at Def Jam Records, and eventually he was the head of YouTube. He ran YouTube. And he may still, I'm not sure. But Leor Cohen loved Fishbone, and he put Fishbone together with Run DMC.
Mm.
The first time Run DMC played Hollywood. The only thing they had done in Los Angeles before that was played somewhere in Compton at a place called the Stardust Ballroom. in Hollywood. And he put us together with Houdini.
Oh, yeah.
We opened for Ice-T. And Ice-T, if you're checking, he will say that show inspired him to do Body Count. There was a particular I don't give a fuck moment. He got it.
Wait, what was the moment?
Well, okay, so look, like that particular audience did not get Fishbone. I don't know if they didn't get us, if they were shocked. They just seemed to stand there and they bewilderment. They gave no response. They didn't clap. They didn't boo. And I never had encountered that. I'm a motherfucker throw something at you, they don't like you, but that's a response, right? And there was like nothing. And at the end of the night, after the last show, I grabbed a microphone stand, twirled it around, and threw it up into the ceiling, and it stuck. The bass went into the ceiling, and it stuck there. and so we've interacted with Ice-T throughout the years, before there was a Body Count. And, like Ice-T had fame in the streets since, like, I knew of him in the streets since I was at least in the 10th grade, if not before. And he did a dance at the Culver City Memorial Auditorium. I was in the 11th grade. My school, it was related to my school, Hamilton High School, Alexander Hamilton. And I went to that, and I was like, that was the first time I heard gangster rap. And it was like, oh shit, the drive-by got a soundtrack. This shit ain't going nowhere ever. Like, I knew immediately. I was like, but Ice-T used to have these clubs in LA. He had a club called Radio. I went there a few. It was a hip hop club. Went there a few times. Not much. Walt went there way more than I did, I think. And but later on, he had these clubs: Water the Bush and United Nations. And it was a lot of interaction with the Rhyme Syndicate. And, Bronx Style Bob from the Rhyme Syndicate was a part of my band Trulio, Disgracias.
Mm-hmm.
Bob ran the live room in Ice-T's club, so we were the band, and we'd get up there and jam and do whatever we wanted to do. And sometimes I would be drunk as shit, and got extra lubricated thoughts, and I'd just get on the mic and freestyle rhyme and shit. And those times when I'd be on the mic just rhyming, babbling, drunk, and I look up and there's EPMD behind me waiting for the mic. There's, like is that, MC Light or Queen Latifah or something, like it would, the DOC and, like all these, and I'd be like, oops. But yeah, it was incredible. Like, but yeah, so I was talking about Leo Cohen, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And Leo Cohen put us together with Grandmaster Flash and the Furious 5.
Yeah. That's awesome.
Yeah, it was amazing. And, and then, we did the License to Ill tour, right?
Yeah.
That was groundbreaking for us. It was one of the most amazing moments in the history of Fishbone.
Yeah, let's talk about that tour. I think it was in 87 or 86.
86 it started.
Okay.
And it went into 87 and I think it went into 80. Seems like it did. It was the Beastie Boys' first headline tour, and it was Murphy's Law, Fishbone, and the Beastie Boys. And it created like basically a lifelong bond with Murphy's Law, and the audience was insane.
Yeah. So how big were these rooms? Were they kind of small rooms because they were just starting
Hell
out?
no.
They were big rooms.
They were massive.
Like, how big are we talking?
We're talking like 3,000, 5,000 seats.
Oh, yeah. That's a big room.
Right? Like, yeah, it was big, nice, big hunking rooms. It seemed like that's what it was. I don't think it was much for 1,500 seaters, maybe some 2,000s, but it seems like 3 to 5, maybe some 7,000. I'm not sure. It's a long time ago, but it was big rooms, and it was a lot of love from those audiences, and that's when, like, the first time, like, really hearing Adam Yauch play bass. Like, he got a bass, there was an amp that he bring in the sound check sometimes. So it seemed like it was around the middle of the tour. That motherfucker would be sitting up playing Bad Brain songs and killing it. I'd be like, wait a minute. And then for the first time, I could hear exactly, like, oh, that's what Daryl is doing. Like, like it was MCA that actually, like, got my ears focused on what was really happening in the song. Yeah, man, he's amazing. He was an amazing dude too. Like, so, but yeah, and we took Schoolie D on tour. We went out with Bitches with Problems. We brought Bitches with Problems out with us. That was incredible.
Wow.
And we did, yeah. We had a lot of interaction with hip hop. I sat in. It was just, this is LA, so, like, there was John O'Brien was Fishbone's roadie. He was the bassist before he come to work there. He was a bassist in the America's Hardcore. I believe that's the band he was in. Wait, let me make sure I get that right. I don't know where to check that either. Shit. I think that's the band. But John O'Brien, he came to work for us, and he was amazing with us, and he began to expand as a musician, as a bassist, and he began to learn how to record. And a mutual friend was worked at Island Records. Her name is Kim Bowie. She was like, I need a producer for this band, the Samoans, they're called the Booyah Tribe. And I was like, oh, maybe you should check out John O'Brien. He's making amazing recordings on this 4-track. He might be good. And she checked him out, and John O'Brien got the gig. So John O'Brien and Dave Kushner, who is probably most known from Velvet Revolver.
Okay, yeah.
But he was in Wasted Youth and played with Danzig, and but he played in Trulio Disgracias as well. Both of them did. And so I'd be couch surfing like a motherfucker all over LA, and they had my favorite couch. So, I'm doing what I do, couch surfing, like, 12 packs of beer upon awakening. And we'd all wake up and who's going to get the 12 pack? And, and, and then John got that gig, and then, so I'm passed out on the couch, wake up to, these big hunking Samoans coming in the house. But I sat up and watched them do the pre-production for the new Funky Nation Booyah Tribe album. And it was actually, yeah, it was fucking fun, man.
This just popped in my head. Didn't Kevin Lyman book you guys real early in his career, and I think in your career too?
Hell yeah, we was all little kids.
So how did that come about?
Well, we had not known Kevin prior to him reaching out to book us in, like, Claremont, somebody just mentioned some of the little towns, the college east off the 10 shows. Kevin put us together with Chardon Square. And like we did several things, Fishbone and Chardon Square. And if some of y'all never heard of Chardon Square, they were, like I think of them as more of a mod band. I'm sure they did some ska, but their manager was Paul Tillett, Golden Voice.
Oh yeah, okay.
The surviving originator of Coachella. So all three of us, Fishbone, Kevin Lyman, Paul Tillett, we was all like, doing the damn thing, and Kevin would book the Untouchables. And Kevin booked, like, one of my favorite things ever was Fishbone, Trouble Funk, and the Untouchables. Did several, like 3 shows in California. Amazing.
He told us that that you guys would crash at his house too.
Hell yeah. Yeah, it was at his wedding, and that's real love, real family vibes, man.
Yeah. All right. So Beastie Boys, I read this Spin article on Beastie Boys, and this quote jumped out at me here. It says that the Beasties would sometimes come up and open for themselves as a group called Trip Hammer. They would wear these wigs and jam on Black Sabbath type stuff. It was very Spinal Tap-ish. At one point, they got this big inflatable dick in a box. The phallus was 25 feet tall and was erected by a large tank of gas. And then a dick would pop up. But one night, Fishbone, so this is during your tour, Fishbone went out and got a bunch of live crabs and somehow adhered them to the phallus without anyone's knowledge. The guys turn the valve up and pops the dick with these huge crabs wiggling all over them. This is anything you remember?
Hell yeah! Because we were like, that was the last show of the tour, and we was expecting the Beastie Boys to do some big, like, at end of tour prank on us. So we was like, oh, we'll get them good. Because we didn't just get crabs. We got these big, gigantic, inflatable blue balls, too. So the dick went up, the blue balls, big blue balls, like, filled up with air and the crabs. And I'll never forget how they laughed at that.
We'll be right back after this.
Hey, welcome to Kyle Meredith with Consequence. This is where we check out some of the cool new things happening in the Consequence Podcast Network. I'm Kyle Meredith. Today, I get to talk with Adam Unz to discuss the latest season of The Opus.
Hi.
Well, first off, Adam, congratulations on the new season.
Thanks, Kyle.
So, which album is in the spotlight this season?
As always, it's presented by the Consequence Podcast Network and Sony Legacy Recordings. It's a music history series, and it's coming back to celebrate the 30th anniversary of Alice in Chains' sophomore album, Dirt.
What a classic album. I completely remember hearing it, those first few listens back when it came out. 92, I probably picked it up in 93 and 94. It was just dark and heavy and so melodically beautiful at the same time.
I know. Dirt was truly a genre-bending collection that defined an era. So we're going to help our listeners to explore the context of what was happening back then and also hear how it still inspires artists and fans today.
Sounds great. And you can listen to it at consequence.net or, of course, wherever you get podcasts. It's great talking with you, Adam. Thanks for stopping by.
Thanks, Kyle.
I want to talk a little bit about bass playing.
Yeah, man.
You were in on bass at a real young age, right?
Yeah, absolutely, man. I just turned 58, right? And this Christmas, will be the 50th year that I have had a bass.
So you've been going since you were 8 years old then?
Yeah.
Wow.
So you saw the Ohio Players in Graham Central Station at Shrine Auditorium, and that's when you knew that night that you wanted to be a bassist, right?
Yeah. And this is actually like I had a guitar, right? I got asked for a guitar for Christmas and got it at 6 years old. But I didn't really have the chord thing down. So I played bass lines anyway. I didn't think much of what I was doing. That didn't connect me to bass necessarily. But yeah, I had the notion at that show that I am meant to play bass as I was blinded by this light that came from the stage.
Uh-huh.
And but I didn't ask for a bass for Christmas. I asked for a weight set. 8 years old, and I was about to get He-Man'd up. And actually, my cousin Bud came over Christmas Day, and he saw them weights, and he looked at them weights, and he looked at me. He said, "Boy, you ain't gonna lift them weights." Yeah, I am. Yeah, I'll make you a deal. I trade. You give me them weights, I'll give you my bass. And I'll throw in my amp, my speaker, and my rock record collection. Right? And just a few years ago, like really like 4 or 5 years ago, maybe. It's hard to get the COVID break to keep
Sure.
time, but it could have been 6 years ago. But we have Thanksgiving at his house. He turned to me and he was like, "Yeah, it looked like you took that bass and you made something out of it." And I was like, "Oh yeah." I was like, "Thanks for giving me my life, man."
So what was this bass like? What brand was it, and what was this head?
It was a Fender.
Yeah, Fender bass.
Yeah.
And then what type of amp was it?
It was a PV amp, a Mark 400. It was a 400 watt amp with a 215 speaker cabinet.
Oh, okay. So that's a pretty good rig right out the gate.
Yeah, it was man sized, and part of the deal was we lived in an apartment, and he was like, "You got to carry that amp and speaker up the stairs by yourself."
Oof.
And I did.
Yeah. What were some of the records that were in that collection he gave you?
The first Graham Central Station album. There was several Jimi Hendrix albums. It was The Cry of Love, probably the most impactful. It was the first posthumous album release. Jimi Hendrix, but there was Band of Gypsies, Electric Ladyland, and Axis Bold as Love. And also Woodstock 2, which was like, there's a Woodstock album, and Woodstock 2 was stuff that didn't make it on there. And so, so there was Jimi Hendrix performance and Mountain. I listened to a lot. The Sly and the Family Stone, I believe. And like I used to tune to Jimi Hendrix tuning up in between songs. He's tuned in between every song. And so I'd listen to that and try to tune to what Jimi Hendrix was doing. And but it was some Jefferson Airplane, Chicago Transit Authority, and there was another Chicago album. Like, does anybody really know what time it is? Wait, is that maybe that's on that album? Maybe there's another song I'm thinking of. Whatever that second, I listened to all the Chicago Transit Authority, but that second one was only one song. 25 or 64 maybe. I'm having a hard time with that. I've been still listening to Chicago Transit Authority. I actually want to cover it in its entirety in some capacity for the fun of it. But Funkadelic, the first Funkadelic album, and America Eats Us Young, Sly and the Family Stone Stand. And there's a bunch of other ones too. But, the same cousin, like a few years later, me and my brother, a couple years later, I think had to be 10, we'd go visit him in the summers. He went to college, Turlock, California, not far from Stockton. I knew nothing of Stockton, but I didn't really figure that out till I was touring. But he stopped listening to rock, and his whole record collection was jazz. Me and my brother feasted on his record collection. And that's where we got turned on to jazz fusion.
Mm-hmm.
And jazz, period. I'm fucking 10 years old and digging into like all kinds of jazz. We'd listen to jazz radio and at his house and just hear all kind of straight ahead, big band, whatever. It was so, but really it was about Return to Forever and Stanley Clarke, Lenny White and the Astral Pirates, Jean-Luc Ponty, but we developed this appreciation for jazz, the sophistication, and it set our goals as musicians.
Yeah. I've talked to Chris before, and he's mentioned Return to Forever in particular as like a pretty critical influence on Fishbone in the early days, or starting from the early days and going forward.
Yeah, we all knew of them and could have sit down and appreciate them together. Yeah, it was. It absolutely was, and that might have primed the pump for. I think I was in the 9th grade, and I'm in one of my shop classes, and this kid is like talking about Rush. I knew nothing of Rush. And he was like, look, and I'll talk about Funkadelic. And he's like, one day he brought a Rush album to school, and I brought a Funkadelic album to school. And we traded. He gave me Permanent Waves, and all of that jazz fusion primed the pump for my love of Rush and prog rock, Permanent Waves, right? Mm-hmm. So, yeah, all of that, fuels all of us, all of Fishbone. Really me, it's all of us, but me, Chris, Kendall, and Fish, for sure.
So I want to talk about some of your bass techniques. Particularly, I feel like you have a very unique, interesting approach to slapping.
Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit? I was watching this video of you, and I'm sure you slap different ways, but this one particular way you were talking about, it's almost like you were using your thumb more as a pick rather than as like full on slapping.
Yep, I didn't invent that, but a guy named Jeffrey Connor showed it to me. He showed me several techniques and the thing is like just my application and the way that I approach it. One, like most of the guys that use some of them techniques, they play the bass really like up towards their chin,
Yeah.
So it gives as you actually get better access. But like when I started playing bass, my mother got me this bass book. It's a book on, how to play. And the first page is like, make sure the bass is comfortable. My smart aleck ass is like, well, I'm most comfortable when my arms is relaxed and down to my side. So I took the strap and put it as long as it could get. And that just became what I did. So all of my techniques are like that's a part of why I have my own style, because my approach, one, like most people play like, from either like right on their abs or above, on sitting high on the chest up to right under the neck or something, their neck. And, I'm like, I got my bass is down covering my crotch, you know? So, so that's a part of it. But yeah, like, so it's called double thumbing. And it took me a long time to realize, like, Larry Graham actually, that's what he was doing anyway. Like, he's the Jimi Hendrix of bass in my mind. Like, dudes like Stanley is fucking fancy as fuck, and he's amazing, and he's like bass guy. Victor Wooten, like it's a gang of motherfuckers, but those are iconic, right? And Marcus Miller, got to give it up, right? And he's a double thumbing king. But Larry Graham was doing that shit. So it's like I'm like that. It took me in the last 10 years to kind of figure that out. But yeah, like so Jeffrey kind of showed me that thing, and it took me a long time to pull it together. And like I had to approach it like my thumb as a pick. So I could play some punk rock like that, and I could make it funky, like I think maybe it's not a lot of people out there doing punk rock with double thumbing technique.
Yeah, I don't think so.
Yeah. So yeah, that lends it to the application, right? Jeffrey also gave me the what I was, call it the craw, based on the Kentucky Fried Movie, right? And but the claw, right? So it was so you down with your thumb, pluck with your first finger, pluck with your middle finger, a triplet. And and so there's a way that I approach that that's different. And that's what I use if anybody really wants to hear it, like the end of a song called The Warmth of Your Breath. And why that is like so breakneck speed going there from my end is I'm using that technique. The other song, like there's a little point in the solo in Boning in the Boneyard where I do that. There's like another one, I call it the hang loose, where I use my pinky. I'm slapping the bass with my thumb and my pinky, and my hand is just going back and forth, like, like if you do the hang loose thing and you shake your hand from side to side.
Yeah.
Like it's ultimately that's I don't hold my hand like that exactly, but it's that technique. And so I get some really different kind of things going there too. And but it was the fan is the one that I developed a few other things, but the fan is the other one that I talk about a bunch. And it came from watching these ladies play this instrument that I couldn't even tell you the name right now. I had to look it up a few times in my life, but I always forget. But it's a native to Japan instrument, I believe. And I think it had 3 strings. It was 3 women. The promoter, Masahiro Hidaka, he's the Fuji Fest, right? Like he's but a Smash Corporation and in Japan, and he would take us to dinner after every show, man. We'd feast massively. And there's one, they had this entertainment where these women sat cross-legged with this triangular shaped body instrument with a long neck with 3 strings on it. And they look so calm and tame as as humans. But when they attacked this instrument, it was with such it looked like reckless abandon, but it was so much accuracy and intense and like precision with intensity, but it looked out of control and punk as fuck. And I just sat there going, I got to figure out how to employ whatever they're doing. They're using a pick, and I don't even use a pick. I play a little guitar. I don't use a pick. And so I figured it out, and it's those women, whoever they were, I have to thank for that technique.
Is that instrument a shamisen?
Yes, I believe that is correct. One of my bass students looked it up last, and I believe that's what he found.
So the Fishbone song, When Problems Arise, I feel like I really like not just the bass line that you have in there, but also the kind of how it sits within the song, what it adds to the song without taking away.
Yeah. That's one of my favorite bass lines that and that came about because Kendall wrote that song to begin with, right?
Mm-hmm.
And whatever he wanted to do with it, me and Fish was like, that sucks. We did not want to play whatever he had in mind. So we went to the work of just trying to figure out how to make it feel better to us. And really, there's a song on Funkadelic's America Eats Us Young album. The song is called Miss Lucifer's Love. And that is the inspiration for the rhythmic pulse of that song.
Now, wasn't there a similar story to the intro for Party at Ground Zero?
No, I wrote that, but Party at Ground Zero, as you know it, the upbeat, rock of ska thing is the same thing. Kendall had a bass line and a rhythm arrangement that I was like, I don't want to play that. And me and Fish went to work to figure out what else could be done, what else was possible. And hence, teamwork makes the dream work. Hey!
Yeah.
In Defense of Ska will return in a moment.
Hey, welcome to Kyle Meredith with Consequence. This is where we check out some of the cool new things happening in the Consequence Podcast Network. I'm Kyle Meredith. Today, I get to talk with Adam Unz to discuss the latest season of The Opus.
Hi.
Well, first off, Adam, congratulations on the new season.
Thanks, Kyle.
So, which album is in the spotlight this season?
As always, it's presented by the Consequence Podcast Network and Sony Legacy Recordings. It's a music history series, and it's coming back to celebrate the 30th anniversary of Alice in Chains' sophomore album, Dirt.
What a classic album. I completely remember hearing it, those first few listens back when it came out. 92, I probably picked it up in 93 and 94. It was just dark and heavy and so melodically beautiful at the same time.
I know. Dirt was truly a genre-bending collection that defined an era. So we're going to help our listeners to explore the context of what was happening back then and also hear how it still inspires artists and fans today.
Sounds great. And you can listen to it at consequence.net or, of course, wherever you get podcasts. It's great talking with you, Adam. Thanks for stopping by.
Thanks, Kyle.
So pre-Fishbone, the band would rehearse in your bedroom?
Yeah.
The Aquarium, was that what it was called?
Yeah, 2010 Cheriton, Block West La Cienega, between Cadillac and Guthrie.
How was were the Were the neighbors okay with you just blasting away in your room?
Well, we got some complaints. Really cool thing is the manager of the building, his name was Sam Burns, lived right above us. And he put up with it.
Ah.
As a neighbor lived right next door, her name was Miss Johnson. She put up with it. Right? They got abused. But Miss Johnson did complain a bunch. But she never made us stop. Sam Burns was the first person to tell us, I think y'all got a groove.
Oh.
And the song we were doing was Skanking to the Beat.
Nice. He's got good taste.
Yeah. When I think about it, because we were just, doing what we do, I think everybody in the building was black, man, and ska was not, especially how we was approaching it. Like that shit wasn't part of what they was on, and
Yeah.
and they dealt with what we was doing, honing our craft. Every single one of those people. So I gotta look back and be like, my mother, our neighbors were an incredible support system.
I read this interview once where you said that in those early days, you guys were really into reggae and other music, and that you were speeding up reggae, thinking that you were inventing a new sound. And then you heard two-tone ska and realized that this thing you were doing already existed.
Yeah, exactly, man. We had been playing with reggae rhythms. There's some Belizean dudes in the neighborhood that just one dude had, I wish I could remember his name. He had a van and he'd be bumping reggae in his van. And, and reggae was being played on black radio in LA as well. Like K-Day, KGFJ, mainly K-Day, I think I remember though. KGFJ, I'm sure did it too. Like at some point, 78, Bob Marley would come on like at night. So I wake up in the night to take a piss and there'd be this sound that I was not familiar with on the radio. There was guys that used to just come over and beat on stuff. Like we were open like that. A guy named Kevin Allen and Tylon Barger, they would come over and Kevin was a bassist too. We'd play with two basses and we'd play with reggae rhythms, but at the point to where like the guys that would become original Fishbone were together, that was like by that time KJLH, which is a record station that Stevie Wonder owned, he still own it in Los Angeles. And Stevie Wonder loved Steel Pulse, and they started playing Steel Pulse. So on the radio in LA, like late night Bob Marley. And then the next thing you heard was Third World, Now That We Found Love. And then the next thing was Steel Pulse. And KJLH was pumping it. True Democracy was actually everywhere. And then the next thing that we really fell upon, discovered or whatever, was Black Uhuru. And I could honestly say, as a rhythm section wise, Sly and Robbie became what we was looking to. They were like, to me, equal to Funkadelic's rhythm section at the time, which was Dennis Chambers and Rodney Skeet Curtis. Was who he was looking to the most, me and Fish, right? But so yeah, and anyway, but before we got to that point, it was yeah, we were playing with reggae rhythm, speeding it up like with punk rock energy, and I thought we invented something. It was me. I was like, we invented something. That's what we gonna call it. Walt looked at me and said, "That's ska, fool." And I'm like,
so he already knew about it.
yeah, he already knew. because he had an aunt named Frankie. Frankie might still be with us, but I ain't seen her in decades. But Frankie she was a limo driver, and she had a passenger that liked ska, and she turned Walt on to ska. And hence, ska, when like it was within 2 days, 3 days at the most, Walt came back to my place, dropped 2 cassettes on the table. That's ska. It was the selector and the English beat. Shut my punk ass up. But that set us on the direction that we would, And the next thing that really was really blew our minds was dance craze.
Yeah.
Right. Maybe the specials on Saturday Night Live came before dance craze, but like somewhere in there, dance craze, and we got to see dance craze as a double feature with the decline of Western civilization at the Fox Theater in Venice, where we also saw in that same period of time a double feature of Rockers and The Harder They Come.
Oh, awesome.
So we was getting our education on, right?
Yeah. The first EP, Party at Ground Zero and these other songs, you weren't really playing ska the way the two-tone bands were. You were creating a new sound, and it was really, honestly, it's been the most important and influential version of ska in the development of US ska is Fishbone.
Mm-hmm.
The blueprint of what bands would play a decade later, and also you played it better.
Well, thank you. Like for us, we was just doing what came naturally, right? We didn't, we were fans of the Untouchables. We loved all the English ska bands. By the time, Joey Altruda, right?
Yeah, Jump with Joey. Yeah.
Yeah. So Joey was in a band called Tupelo Chain Sex. And he's Tupelo Joe. We did a bunch of shows with them. In Tupelo Chain Sex was violinist Sugarcane Harris and Don Cherry, right? And if people don't know Don Cherry's music, that's Nina Cherry and Eagle Eye Cherry's dad, right?
Wow, yeah.
So, but you should become related with Don Cherry's music. So anyway, they were in Tupelo Chain Sex, and I didn't know who they were at the time, but we loved Tupelo Chain Sex. Limey Dave was the vocalist. Willie McNeil was the drummer. They were an amazing band, and they ran with Skate Master Tate, right? And it was Gaz Mayall, John Mayall's son. Not Gaz. Y'all know Gaz is Rockin' Blues, the Trojans, right?
Yeah.
Gaz's older brother, Jason, managed Tupelo Chain Sex.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah. He was like this English dude was the baddest Corvette, like a 54 Corvette, I believe. Anyway, Jason, Skate Master Tate, it might have been Willie McNeil or Tupelo Joe. Like they turned Fishbone on to ska from Jamaica. We was facing to England. It's the most amazing thing. And they were the ones that really got us related with the Jamaican ska. Kendall, I think, was the only person in the band that he knew the song The Israelites, but I don't think he knew of it as a ska song.
Mm-hmm, yeah.
Right. It was just this cool song that happened to come across somehow in his listening.
Yeah, that song was like a modest hit in the 60s. It's one of those few songs that kind of crossed over.
Yeah, so they gave us a full education. Now, all of this is a part of what created, it's all of those influences
Yeah.
that actually, you know, are a part of what became that thing that our what made Fishbone ska, you know, different. And we didn't want to sound like anybody else.
Yeah, that's a good thing that's a good trait to have as a band.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like we did not want to sound like any of our favorite musics, you know? Like like I didn't think our funk sounded like funkadelic. It's like we did our own. To me, it sounded very different. It was no doubt influenced, and the ska influenced by everything I just talked about. Our perception was that is your duty to create your own sound because nobody sound like our favorite bands. None of them sounded alike.
Mm-hmm.
You look at English ska music scene, like the bands didn't sound alike. Everybody had a completely different identity.
Yeah, I mean that's what's cool about it.
And the Untouchables don't sound like any of them. They had their own way of approaching it. You could draw a line to their influences, maybe in a way, but like that's just what it looked like. Like we knew of bands that just sounded like carbon copies of the bands that we liked the most. And they were like, okay, that's cool, but you know what I mean? Like, don't there's not a band yet that sounds anything like Sly and the Family Stone. So you know what I mean? Like
Mm-hmm.
ain't nobody, and nobody can do really, like the Sex Pistols, right? Like or the Clash, really. There's bands that draw from it heavily and they give you that vibe, but it's only the chemical combination of those band members that really give you 100% of it. So I'm looking to the OG
Mhm.
always.
I want to move forward to Lollapalooza '93.
Yeah,
So I was watching this one video. It was a short video with you and Angelo, and you guys were talking about how insane the pits were.
yeah,
I think Toronto was the most insane, if I remember.
yes, absolutely.
And so the other thing too is that Angelo was constantly encouraging it, right?
Yep.
And you guys were telling him to not do that.
Oh, we was like, please don't do that. Like it looked like it could not be good. And from where we were standing, it looked evil. Like you standing on stage and 1,500 people at once start moving in a circle. By Toronto, like I'd imagine there was some of them pits like 3,000 people just churning, and it looked slow. It looked like like it could not be good. Like this, and he wouldn't stop.
Damn.
He wouldn't stop, man. I'm like, and after the Toronto show, our tour manager, this guy named Wooly Roach, he grabbed me and Angelo and he took us to the infirmary. And the carnage was insane. It was compound fractures and broken bones everywhere, man. And he was like, this is what is happening. Angelo still didn't stop.
Oh man.
he couldn't stop.
No, it was like, I don't remember exactly how many years later. It seemed like, that's 93. It had to be the late 90s. Finally, this one day, this motherfucker said, yeah, I had a God complex. You motherfucker. My stomach would turn. It was, and you know what? It's actually like seeing Black Flag gave me the same feeling. You know, just like something's wrong. I love Black Flag, but there was something happening when they would play to make my stomach just going. One day I saw Black Flag at the Hollywood Palladium, and I'm standing at the very back of the room with Flea, and he distinguished that.
just like a feeling of unease.
Yeah, like something is wrong. It was like something bad is happening. But you know, that's good. That's rock and roll, except when people actually get hurt.
Sure.
The Lollapalooza was a height for the band, but at the same time, you having to go back to LA to the court regarding the.
I was going to court in Nevada.
Oh yeah, I'm sorry. That's what I meant. Yeah, so you were having to deal with that case, like in the middle of Lollapalooza, right?
Oh my God. When I think about what I was going through back then, yeah. And you know, it was a court case with Kendall and kidnapping charges, and in the middle of that, I had a fucking child custody case.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that's the one. Like I sometimes forget, like that happened, you know. And I survived. I survived. I got a full acquittal from the kidnapping case, and I lost miserably in the custody case. But you know, I made most of the shows. I think I missed 3 because of flights. And Foley,
Yeah.
he was playing with Arrested Development at the time. So if people you don't know, Foley played. He played lead bass, piccolo bass, with Miles Davis. And the next thing I know about is that he was playing with Arrested Development on Lollapalooza. And eventually he played drums with George Clinton for a good stretch. He's an amazing musician. I just reconnected with him on tour in Cleveland with George Clinton. He wasn't on tour, he came out. But yeah, Foley sat in, filled the gap when my flight was delayed or whatever the deal was.
Didn't he fill in for Fish on drums once on that tour?
Well, I think Fish just let him play. But yeah, something like that. Yeah. But that was like, you know, that was an incredible space. Yeah, Foley sat down and played drums. But so did every now and again Fish would get up and I'd turn around and there's Tim Alexander playing or Danny Carey, you know.
With the kidnapping case, I don't remember if this was talked about in the documentary, but I read this one article that said that the judge said that he would have just outright dismissed the case, but because it was so strange, he wanted to see it through.
That happened. We would have chalked it up to something domestic and thrown it out. Because in really nobody got hurt, and it was, you know, there was no danger beyond that, and that doesn't, you know. So yeah, the fact that he said like, you know, motherfucker, say the quiet part out loud.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. Like, really, the story's bizarre, and your entertainment is going to hang my life up. My brother needed help. That's why that happened.
Yeah.
You know? And that's why we were acquitted, because it was obvious to the jury that my brother needed help, Kendall, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
That's what they said. There was a guy on the jury after we were acquitted. He was in a wheelchair, I believe, and he rolled up and he's like, you know, I'm a demonologist. He's like, I came here to put you guys in prison. But after I saw Kendall on the stand, I knew that you guys were only trying to help your friend.
I mean, just watching any of that, I mean, it seems pretty obvious to me that you guys were coming from a place of love.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I still don't know what the fuck it means to be a demonologist. I should look that up. It's probably something on YouTube. You know what I mean? Like, what the fuck are you doing, man? Like you know, like that's a wild one to me. Man. He said it though.
In 2020, you guys did a all original lineup reunion with Kendall.
Yeah.
For it was at the Museum of Pop Culture, and you covered Them Bones, Alice in Chains.
Yes.
What was that experience like playing with Kendall again?
Well, you know what, Kendall, it was a full circle moment, man. It's like if I was gonna do a tribute to Alice in Chains, Kendall could be there. He'd have to be there because Kendall was the person that grabbed me by the ear and drugged me to go see Alice in Chains the first time I ever saw them in a room. There wasn't very many people there. It was I usually say it's probably about 30 people. It could have been a little more, but it wasn't much more. And every time they came to LA, Kendall would be like, let's go see Alice in Chains. And we would go together to see Alice in Chains. And we watched their audience grow in Los Angeles.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and so the love and friendship with that band begins with Kendall. I remember him. He got the advanced copy of their first record, and he's like, "This is the future." So fuck yeah! I'm like, no. The band talked about it. Let's invite Kendall, and he was up for it. It was appropriate.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and always in the back of my head, I'm like, dude, me, Kendall, and Fish, really? There's not another experience like it.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And so, of course, I wished that we could do a lot more. It wasn't in the cards at the time, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And even today, I'm like, you know, if I thought that, you know, it would work, I'd welcome Kendall. I don't think it would now. I still talk to him. I love the brother forever, you know. But, you know, when it comes down to this music thing, like, you know, he's the foundation of it, like
Mm-hmm.
I am, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And in fact, over the years, you know, like as I'm playing on stage and I'm looking at the set list and the bulk of the material is Kendall's compositions, you know.
Yeah.
I mean, we all have a part with crafting it on some level, but honestly, dude, I'm like, to this day, like, I'm like, I have a life because of the combination of all the originals, and that will always be important to me. Diminished none.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was really cool to watch that footage to see you guys all on stage again. And I actually really loved your version of Them Bones. You didn't do it exactly the same way. You made it sound like Fishbone.
Yeah.
I do feel like that's an underrated aspect of Fishbone. You guys are good at covers. You make them your own.
Yeah, that is you know, like Freddie's Dead erupted in sound check.
Yeah.
I didn't listen to the song to learn that. That's why the chorus isn't, you know, the change isn't exactly what the bass. I never listened to it. I just played what I thought it was and kept doing that. It wasn't until like we was doing I'm a Fly Guy with Curtis Mayfield in the studio, Fishbone in the studio with Curtis Mayfield for I'm Gonna Get You Sucker soundtrack, right? And Curtis Mayfield was like, yeah, that's an interesting arrangement you got of my song. And then it all of a sudden hit me like, oh shit, I never listened to it. I finally went and was like, oh shit, the bass line is doing something really else. But again, that's one of them things where like, we think that's the way it should be. You don't no need to carbon copy something.
Mhm.
Yeah. Did the filmmakers put that recording session together?
Oh hell yeah. That was a we gonna jump at this one. Keenan Ivory Wayans. Yes, thank you, bro. Like what's more epic, like in my life to and to get to do a song with Curtis Mayfield, right? For that movie in particular, it's other than to be the band that rolled with George Clinton on his farewell tour,
Yeah.
right? It's a fucking good life.
Thank you for listening to In Defense of Ska. To support the show, sign up for our Patreon. Intro and outro music by Slow Gherkin from the EP Lives. Additional music by Dan P. and the Bricks. Please rate and review the podcast and tell a friend. Follow at In Defense of Ska on social media. The book In Defense of Ska by Aaron Carnes is available from Clash Books. Order it online. Chris Reeves of SPI is our editor. This is your co-host, Adam Davis of Omnigon, leaving you by saying ska now more than ever.
What are you doing? Are you just making bass slapping sounds?
I just wish I was a bass player sometimes, right?
So you love having drummers on. How do bass players rank in your guest priority list?
They're all right. I like them. Especially if they're Norwood from Fishbone.
Yeah.
I'll take Norwood from Fishbone any day of the week. That was a fun episode.
Yeah. And there was more episode.
What? How?
We talked about their supernova experience behind the curtain. That's a juicy one. Yeah.
We sure did. If you were at Supernova, or if you were in the audience or in one of the bands, and you want to know what was happening, come sign up for the Patreon. Hear it from Norwood. Find out what happened.
It's only $5,
or more. You can sign up for more, right?
You can sign up for more. Yeah.
Every dollar goes towards making this podcast a better podcast.
Yes.
So chop, get to it. Help us out.
Yeah. What do we got next week?
What do we got next week? Daniel Rachel, right?
Yeah.
Author of
Too Much Too Young, which is the official two-tone oral history. This is a good one. This is the one you're going to want to sit down, grab a pen and paper, grab an apple for the teacher, and just be educated.